In Cape Town, on February 11, 1990, upon release from prison, a speech that Nelson Mandela gave. It is evident how significant his speech really was by the choice of his words and the audience that he gave the speech to. The speech that Nelson Mandela gave was a compassionate speech, full of emotionally grabbing words. First, this speech was significant because of how humbled he was throughout the whole speech. He says, quote, "I stand here before you not as a prophet, but as a humble servant to you, the people. Your tireless and heroic sacrifices have made it possible for me to be here today. I therefore place the remaining days of my life in your hands." Not only does Nelson Mandela give thanks to the people of South Africa and Cape Town, but he also thanks the many distinguished groups and dignitaries of South Africa, one of which was the ANC. Secondly, what makes Nelson Mandela and his speeches so significant was that his speech was not only full of humility, but it was also inspiring. Not only by his words, but his tone that he exuded. He exuded a tone of faith, gratefulness, and great respect. He had faith in the people of Cape Town. He says, "Your mass marches and other forms of struggle have served as a constant source of strength to all political prisoners." Time and time again, Nelson Mandela exudes gratitude throughout his entire speech, which shows how grateful and humbled he was by his experience in prison. Ultimately, what makes Nelson Mandela such a significant speaker and his speech such a significant one is that after being released from prison, he still strived for integration and equality in South Africa, which he finally succeeded after the death of Oliver Tambo in 1993, and he became the first freely elected president of South Africa. After becoming president, he did not seek revenge for his wrongful imprisonment. He did not seek vengeance against the white minorities that put him in prison in the first place. But as president, Nelson Mandela made the transition from apartheid to unity through the ballot box. Now that I've covered why Nelson Mandela and his speech was so significant, Ernie will talk to you guys about how Nelson Mandela's speaking skills relates to what we've learned in class.
Nelson Mandela's movements and actions have changed life for the citizens of South Africa in many ways. His speaking pathway uses many of the same techniques that we have learned as a class in this public speaking class. First, Mandela makes sure to identify his audience and approaches them in a way that appeals to them. For example, in the same speech that Jeremy mentioned earlier, Mandela's address to rally in Cape Town on release from prison in February of 1990, Mandela comes out with his introduction saying, "Friends, comrades, and fellow South Africans, I greet you all in the name of peace, democracy, and freedom for all." This displays his formal yet informal introduction towards his audience. Second, his organizational methods are superb. By using repetition, Mandela first salutes important people that have helped him accomplish his goals. "I salute the ANC. I salute our president, Comrade Oliver Tambo. I salute rank and file members of the ANC. I salute combatants of the ANC's military wing, and I salute South African Communist Party." Nelson Mandela then pays tribute to other inspiring groups that also helped him, inspired him accomplishing his goals. "I pay tribute to many religious communities. I pay tribute to traditional leaders of our country. I pay tribute to mothers, wives, and sisters of our nation," etc. And what makes Nelson Mandela's speeches most memorable is in his delivery. After listening to one of his speeches, you really feel his passion and devotion towards his movement. Despite his accent, his fluency and enunciation are incredibly on point. His voice also has a wide dynamic range, and he has those valuable pauses that bring his speeches to life. Eye contact is something that Nelson Mandela uses frequently as well. He makes sure to connect with each member in his audience to really emphasize his point. So whether it be pronunciation, eye contact, or organizational methods, one would think that after listening to Nelson Mandela's speeches, that even the great Mandela sat through one of Professor Hassan's great public speaking classes. Finally, David will explain Mandela's inspirations to us and the world.
Mr. Mandela proves through his own example that faith, hope, and charity are qualities that are attainable by humanity as a whole. Through his willingness to walk the road of sacrifice, he has reaffirmed our common potential to move forward towards a new age. The revolution led by Mandela transformed a model of racial division and oppression to open democracy. He demonstrated that he didn't flinch from taking up arms, but his real qualities came to the floor after his time as an activist during his 27 years in imprisonment and the years after his release. He had to negotiate the challenge of turning myth into a man. He was able to achieve this, but not by deviating from his beliefs and keeping his moral compass true. He once said, "During my lifetime, I have dedicated myself to the struggle of the African people. I have fought against white domination, I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the idea of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. Any man or institution that tries to rob me of my dignity will lose." Once the world's most famous prisoner and then the country's first democratic leader, he exemplifies a moral integrity that shines far beyond South Africa. Mr. Mandela was an ordinary man with strong convictions as to what was right and what was wrong, and he had the courage to take the steps to make the world a better place for all. He continually said, "I was not a messiah, but an ordinary man who became a leader because of extraordinary circumstance." It's no wonder that he was one of the most important people of the century. He is an inspiration to all around the world fighting injustice and oppression. Finally, let me allow Ernie to go ahead and finish this off.
We have explained how important Mandela was throughout his lifetime and the history of South Africa. First, Leilani enlightened you why our team chose this great man. Second, Jeremy explained the significance of Nelson Mandela and his speeches. And third, I showed the connection between communication concepts learned in this class and through Mandela's speeches. And finally, David showed us how Mandela inspired us all and people around the world today. Mandela's thoughts and actions changed the way people of South Africa live today, put an end to segregation and racial bigotry in South Africa. Nelson Mandela was a role model. Nelson Mandela was a political activist, but most importantly, Nelson Mandela was a hero. We can all learn from his caring, kind attitude. Nelson Mandela once said, "In my country, we go to prison first, then become president." Thank you.